Planning of this retreat and workshop, someone thought that because the general chapter just happened and the phase 3 meeting actually just finished here, that it might be worthwhile telling some stories and filling people in on what happened and what some of the decisions and things were. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about Van's question about, all the language and the terminology and just even to know how it happened and what happened. So if you want, we could have each person tell a little bit about what happened at the general chapter, or that might be good just to get each person's sense of what it was about, what happened, and then if everything that happened doesn't come up, I have a PowerPoint, but it might be good just to get the different perspectives. So if anybody wants to talk a bit about the general chapter and how you experienced it, I think that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, what impressed you the most out of that long general chapter?
Yeah.
For you?
I guess what impressed me the most was the site that we were in, the Redemptress Center with the disabilities, persons with disabilities, blind, those who are challenged with mental capacities and the physical capacities. And being surrounded by the mission there of Thailand, the Redemptress mission there, that each day we encountered people in wheelchairs, missing limbs, that spoke English and didn't speak English, and their interactions with us. That was that struck me. I had a special seating where I offered incense every night, and a group of us, and in that setting there were tutors learning. Young people learning English, practicing English. So I got to interact with them and stuff and give them the southern accent of English.
The right way to talk. Southern accent.
But the setting, and that made me as a Redemptress after almost 40 years of profession, it sparked, rekindled that spark in me of reaching out to those who are abandoned. And it was a great sparkling within me. The other thing that struck me was the diversity of the Redemptress. We had people from 82 countries or 70-some countries. And it was just amazing. And what was amazing to me from being from North America was the youthfulness of the other units. As Kinsley from Nigeria used to always kid me. He says, "Glenn, you are an old man. You are an old man. You will be an old man in Nigeria." Because they are all young. Those from Asia, those from Oceania, those from Latin America and Africa. The youthfulness of Redemptress. And that the mission will be carried on by those who are younger than ourselves and stuff, That was struck me. The setting, the diversity, and it didn't matter where we were from. We were all Redemptress. That charism had drawn us from Timbuktu, from Wilson, North Carolina, had drawn us to serve God's people and to proclaim the gospel to those that most need of. Those are my initial reactions to the general chapter.
The 25th General Chapter was my first experience of the chapter. And as we all know, that in the history of our congregation, it happened for the first time ever that the General Chapter happened to be in Asia, and especially in Thailand, where the Catholic population is not even 1%. It's 0.1% Catholic. If you go to the airport in Thailand, and you will see that there is always a special VIP place for monks. You see a lot of signs in the airports saying that monks go this way to pray, the other way go that way to pray, and we don't see any signs saying that priests go that way to pray. We don't have that kind of special treatment. Well, that's very obvious in the airports in Thailand, and that speaks a lot about our minority, the Catholic minority in Thailand. I think the General Chapter happened to be in Thailand was a very obvious sign of support for the newly created province of Thailand. Before it was the vice province. I know it's part of North America.
Yeah.
And they are strong enough to be a province, even though the number of the conferences in the province of Thailand is not a lot. It's only more than 60, 70 conferences in the province of Thailand. But the amount of work they do is just enormous. It's very credible to see a lot of conferences over there doing all kinds of work. But I'm not going to share about how the Redemptorists do the work, but what I see the most is what Glenn just shared about the school for the blind, the school for the orphanage, school for the handicapped, school for the gangsters,
HIV.
for HIV, for the girls. The number of the Redemptorist conferences are not that many compared to the number of lay partners working with the Redemptorists in that field. You see a lot of volunteers, employees, a lot of lay partners working with the Redemptorists and in the Redemptorist atmosphere, and that's incredible. And I think the Redemptorists in Thailand could not make it today without the active collaboration of the laity, and that's already obvious from the beginning of our congregation, right from the start. And that, I think, is also the same phenomenon to our unit for our vice province as well. Without the collaboration of the laity, I don't think the province of Exopatron would be able to be what it is now. So we have the common denomination here is the active collaboration of the laity. It speaks volumes. And there's also another sign of when we were there for more than a month in Thailand. What struck me also was the presence of so many volunteers. They signed up to go to Thailand, stay there for either 6 months or a year. They don't know about the Redemptorists. All they know was through the website online. And so they registered, they signed up for themselves. A lot of them are retired, but they do have the talents, the time, and the treasures. And they want to do something for the handicapped, for the most abandoned. So they signed up to do something. So the province of Thailand sponsor accommodation, everything. But they can commit themselves to stay there at least for 6 months, or 8 months, or a year. And that's why all of us, we saw a lot of people there teaching English to the kids, to the handicapped, to the blind. It's just enormously. And that actually, we are being evangelized by the people who come to do the work. And we have to kind of say, mea culpa. On our part to Redemptorists, what have we done? And perhaps the efforts and the time that we, the Redemptorist Conference, the Vowed Conference, we have done so little compared to the works that a lot of laity out there doing a lot of works for our congregation, and we should be proud of that too.
I'll jump in there because there were 5 lay people who were at the General Chapter for 1 week of the 4. And so there was 1 lay person representing each conference. So the 5 conferences are North America, Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa and Madagascar, Asia, Oceania, and Europe. And so there was 1 from each. We managed to communicate, but we didn't have a common language. At the end, we had to get one of the general counselors to come in and make sure we were speaking the same language. But But it was great. There was some Spanish and some English, and we met. It was a challenge because our job was to put together a presentation that would be made on the Thursday to all the delegates. They're called capitulars, right? The chapter delegates. And so we would get, when they had a rest, we'd be meeting. and we'd put together, like, we had reflection questions that we were to bring prepared in advance and circulate to each other in advance. So we knew each other's names and all that. And if I got something in Spanish, I'd put it through Google Translate, and I'm sure that Rafael in Spain did the same thing, or Jose from Costa Rica. But we ended up being able to put together a presentation to the capitulars about what's happening from our perspective in each one of the conferences, and it was an amazing experience. But that was huge, just preparing for that presentation and getting it done. But it was a whole morning of the general chapter, and the response from the conferers was phenomenal, breathtaking, really. We ran out of time for the session, and I don't think that had happened to any other session of the chapter. And that was it was our presentation, and then there was like an hour and a half of questions from the floor, and kind of a free conversation. It was really a grace-filled experience. But just from the purely personal side, the experience of going to the School for the Blind and hearing those kids sing for us, visiting the orphanage and the children's village, to me as a teacher, that brought me to tears. Like, I talked to kids who didn't know their own names. They'd been taken from the streets at such a young age, didn't even know they had parents, or what their name was, or what their birthday was. I'd never met a child as poor as children can be in Newfoundland. There's no one who doesn't know their name or their birth date. So when you talk about abandoned, those are some of the most I've ever met. But to see them being cared for, and that they're actually sponsored all the way through. If they want to go to even university, they're cared for in that way. So just to see, the handicapped, those with intellectual disabilities, the blind, the vocational school, the school for those with various forms of mental delays, the daycare center, and then this children's village was a phenomenal experience for me. Yeah, it was fantastic.
So I would only confirm that the setting of the chapter was crucial. I remember one of the talks of the Pope Francis, who was referring to the famous document of Aparecida. Those who know that document of the Latin America know that it is a special document, very important document in the church. And he said, when we were writing that document in the church below, in the shrine of Aparecida, we could listen that people were moving on the knees, poor people praying above in the main church. So for us it was the same. After every session you went out of the hall and you could see the reality of the people who were less fortunate than we are, but they were not happy. They were not sad. They were happy. And I didn't see there crying, screaming, sad faces. Moreover, Dominic said many volunteers work there. But you see, our guys, they don't pretend that they become Catholics. They are Buddhists, and they are very welcome to stay with us. We don't pretend to convert them, to say, you can come to us unless you believe in our God. This is crucial. For me, it was a very strong experience of the working of the Holy Spirit. And I am not one person who speaks like this, I'm rather down to the earth. To the point that today, when we have meetings and we revise the decisions, we say, did we vote for that? Did we agree for that? We wonder, how come? And this was really a touching experience of that the Holy Spirit really works. You know, you would imagine that the biggest issue would be to elect the superior general and the council. This was like this. And I was happy about that. We elected them like this, no problem. There were many other issues important. And between those issues, also things connected with our lay friends. As I said here before, we promised you a lot. Read the Acts. Yeah, and ask, you know, the provincials, the councils, to refer to those points, because my impression is that we might now start to say maybe not, maybe to a certain degree. You know, you look there and always refer to the decisions of the General Chapter, because this is the highest juridical body in our congregation, and there are some decisions connected with your future and your life with us and our life with you, and it is very important. I would like just to say just a couple of words about probably the most intense charismatic moment in the chapter. It was not the election of Father Michael Bray, no. we knew, I think, that he will be elected. It was out of any question. But the retreat we lived at the beginning of the chapter, I believe that the retreat set the whole chapter. At least set, you know, the theme of the sexennium. The wounded world comes from the retreat given by the Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Cardinal Archbishop of Manila. If you have some time, or you don't know what to do, go to the iBooks, download his books, and read them. I did that, and that this is the man to be followed, and we should look at him closely. He is one of those who might be one day. But when he spoke to us, you didn't feel the distance. Simplicity of language, simplicity of behavior, of manners, of dressing. He mingled with us as if he was a redemptorist, and he spoke our language.
Very humble.
Very humble. What does it mean? That, you know, simplicity of our manners are not only for redemptorists. If you stick to the gospel, you become simple. You know, and some stories that he said were really moving. We have the text of his retreat, which is not yet officially approved, so it cannot be published. We are waiting for his approval. But once it will be approved, I recommend this text to every one of you. It is really good text and really wisdom for us today. So for me, the chapter was a very intense time. We work in groups, we work in the plenary sessions, and I felt tired at the very end. But the experience of working together, it is very important that you realize that, you know, the redemptorists are not only in your little world, no, and it gives you wider perspective, no, and I wish that every redemptorist could have this experience, because it makes you realize that there are difficulties somewhere which are not difficulties in your world. Like, you know, the whole issue of ecology. There are some decisions people in Europe laugh. Which kind of decision is that? The day of creation, this, no. You go to the Philippines and see the places that were damaged by tsunami and other disasters which were provoked by lack of ecological, you know, awareness, then you understand. And when they stand up and they explain you why it is this, then you agree and you raise your hand and you say, yes, I am for this. Another decision that is commented in our Redemptorist world, that each Redemptorist after 2 terms should be moved from house to house. In many provinces it is not a problem to be moved, but in some provinces, yes. And when you see the guy standing there and explaining things, you understand him and you raise the hand, yes. Because you understand him. You listen to his story, you listen to what he says. So when you look at the decisions, before you start to make comment, imagine that there is somebody behind that decision, no, and they were taken really in a very wise manner, no. They were commented, revised, and we have more than 50 decisions. The previous chapter took 12. We have 50 decisions. What does it mean? It means that there are issues that need to be resolved. There are issues that need to be resolved and at least watched, no? And so, for me, it was a good experience, and I'm grateful to God that I could participate at the chapter. 6 years. Our first general chapter took place in 1749, when we were approved. Before that, the congregation has 2 general assemblies. We could not call them general chapter because we weren't approved. So the first one was the year when we were approved. From that moment till today, we had 25 general chapters. Last 30, 40 years, they are every 6 years. No? And this one was for the first time in Asia. And I think it was a good choice. Some people were saying, if you were in Rome, you could meet Francis, all those kind of speculations, no? I said, it would be good to meet Francis, but I would rather meet those people.
If you live in Rome.
And I tell you, it is not easy to meet Francis.
See, I did a couple of. I brought some pictures. Now these are just ones I took, or that some of them I think somebody else took. But that gives you an idea about the children's village where we actually were. Some of these places we were, and some of these are where these are all the orphan children that we met. There were actually 2 sites we went to, so that gives you an idea. But look at the faces. And they were just so enthusiastic. At the school, the vocational school, they actually were waiting for us. They had an assembly on a Sunday because they were so proud that we were coming to visit. And it wasn't a school day. They all came, I don't know, something like 300 of them came back. It was amazing. Just really. There's the daycare. Can you see me looking down? There was a girl who adopted me. This little kid, she was about 3, and she just decided, because I was the only woman, so she decided that I was her friend, and she followed me around for that whole thing. But so I'm looking down at her and not at the camera. But it was just look at the faces, and they're also they're just the joy. Many of these are not orphans. They're people whose mothers live in dire poverty, and many of the mothers work on the site, and the kids are here, right? So it gives them that dignity of being able to earn a living. There's the children's home again, and us in the middle of it all. See the girls in the corner? They did a Thai dance for us. It was just spectacular. And there's a school for the blind. And the principal was actually a graduate of the school. Yeah. There's a vocational school. There's all the people who came back for the extra day because they knew we were coming to visit, which was kind of neat. That's the center where we had the general chapter. That building was just built, wasn't it? Just newly opened.
Yeah.
You want to see air conditioning? I froze. Like it was, you froze too. I brought a blanket. Like it was so cold. But it was. Look at this and how they did it. It blends right into the neighborhood. And There's everybody who was a delegate to the chapter.
Did the Thai province give everybody those shirts?
They did.
And
Yeah.
each one of them is different.
Okay.
Yeah, they were made that, I thought they were the same, and then each one was a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit
Yeah.
different. And they had a jacket for me, like a blazer. It was really, it was absolutely amazing. There we all are indoors. Gives you differences. So we were all in small groups, and the small groups were around round tables. And then the translation was in 5 languages,
I don't know.
into and out of 5 languages. So the complexity of that. So if someone asked a question from the floor, you had a little earpiece, and you could hear it in your language. So if you got up to answer it, it was translated into all those other languages. Just the number of people it would take to there's the moderators of the chapter. So there were 3 moderators. Some of you know Father Kevin O'Neill from around here, but Joaquim Perron and Clement Campos.
Is Father Kevin, is that the one that talks about perpetual mission? Is that him, or is that another one?
I don't know.
The one do you mean he talks about?
Perpetual mission.
Yeah.
Perpetual help.
Yeah, somebody mentioned...
Well, that was St. Clement Hofbauer.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, he's been around a long time. No, there's a different one for sure. And there are the notaries, and there's a canonical staff, because often questions come up of, can we do this? Should we? So that there they are, and you probably know Matt Allman, some of you. And then you look at the interpreters and that bank of booths. It really is phenomenal to be there, hey? And to experience that. And they were great fun.
Are they Redemptorists or professional translators?
All Redemptorists. All Redemptorists. And some students. Yeah.
Free Redemptors.
Yeah, still Redemptorists. Yeah. And in each booth there are 2 people, one translating into the language and one translating out of. They must have been exhausted, right? I really felt for them. And there's the communications staff, because every day there were updates that were being posted online and on Facebook. And so Father Bijou, who runs the communications office in Rome, and he had an assistant named Kun. So there's Kun down the corner, and Kun didn't have hands.
And the cameras.
And he was doing recording.
He was recording with the cameras and everything.
Driving bicycle. It's amazing. And smoking cigarettes.
That's special.
They were amazing. It was really something. And every day they sent updates in Portuguese and Spanish and Italian and English and I don't know what else. But they just worked. They must have been, I don't think they slept. And there's all the conference coordinators they would have just finished up their term. And there's the chapel we would have worshipped in. So it's see all the colored stuff? They were chips of porcelain that were found in dumps and were kind of put like tiles into plaster. And inside the entire chapel was painted.
No, it was a mosaic explaining gospel in a Thai tradition. A mosaic, no?
No, I don't have a good picture of the inside, I don't think. There's our English group. You were in my group, but there's our English group, the best group. But
I wouldn't say that.
No. And the whole idea of we went into the chapter thinking about new hearts and renewed mission and renewed structures. And so we'll look at what came out. But that was where we went in with, and renewed hope. And there's some pictures of the plenary sessions. Gives you an idea of people up and moving and how engaging it was. And there's the outgoing General Council. Not that they were that outgoing, although some. But there's the next General Council that got elected while I was there. Like, that was the week I was there that all that happened, which was really interesting to watch and be part of. But it was by no means the biggest piece of all this. There's the Partnership in Mission presentation. So there we are at our table. In the room we had to meet in was called the Opium Den. I don't know if I want to think too much about it, but there we all are, and meeting and talking. So, let's see. There's Rafael Junquera. He's from Spain. And Malcolm Salida from Africa, Madagascar. And let's see. Oh, there's Jose Antonio Hidalgo from Latin America. You see me there. And Roxanne Latora from the Philippines. And who am I missing? Who else?
Miss Walsh.
I'm over there. Yeah, Miss Walsh is over there in the corner where she likes to be. And is that Enrique?
There's 6 people and there's only 5 reps.
The other is Enrique Lopez, one of the provincials. And he was trying to translate for us towards the end because just to be clear about a few things. But he was the one who sat with us to set the task and all that. And he was terrific, like patient. There we are actually given our presentation. So I was the spokesperson for the group to give the group report, and then there was a panel presentation. And there we all are, listening to Father Mike do some kind of summary at the end. He actually, I think he was thanking us there. And there's like what the floor looked like and all that. Now I think Bijou took all these pictures. So some of the questions, and there you're trying to listen to the translator, the little machine, and it was really something. And the liturgies. There's a few pictures then of the inside of the chapel, but it's dark, so it was hard for me to get a picture of it. And the socials. The parties were excellent. The roast pigs were really good. So you get this one here, and all of us, like this guy here, he was the runner-up on the European version of The Voice.
Yeah.
And he's a Redemptorist, right? So he was great. But all of us were doing our piece. There's all the Irish and a few English who wanted to claim they were Irish. Doing their thing. And there's just a whole bunch of pictures of people. And we went into Bangkok on the last day that I was there. So it gives you some, like this huge, this Buddha was actually gold, but to hide it, they covered it in concrete. And then it was in concrete for over 100 years, and one day it was dropped when it was being lifted by a crane, and they found out it was gold. So just...
Not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
After that I saw that Buddha, I said, if you ever criticize Catholic Church that we are rich, that's hypocrisy. Pure gold. In a couple of tons of pure gold. So I said, don't speak ever against the Catholic Church that we are rich.
The king had just died. So if you went out in public, you had to wear either a black armband or black or white clothing, no colors.
Yeah.
So, and everywhere was our beloved king. But they absolutely revered this man. He'd been king for 70 years or something. Wow. Came out was the importance of restructuring for mission, and then looking at mission and its relationship to apostolic priorities. We've talked a lot about that the last few days. And then missionary solidarity in a wounded world. And as Peter said, that came out of Cardinal Tagli's retreat. I wasn't at that, but that was a really powerful thing for the capitulars. And the importance of missionary availability. So when you hear questions about, like, why would you have a decision that said you could only live in a house for 8 years? Well, there's the answer. Is to be more available for mission and to allow that fluidity to happen. And missionary identity and shared mission and identity with lay people and with the world. So there's I'm going to send you out maybe tonight to everybody the final document of the 25th General Chapter, because it's really good reading, and it starts with a message from the chapter delegates to the congregation and beyond. And I think like the second paragraph says, the congregation continues to experience the same call heard by St. Alphonsus, our saints, blesseds, and martyrs, and those who've gone before us, to leave our comfort zones and let go of anything that keeps us from being free and prophetic. It's a brilliant message that kind of precedes the decisions. It's important for us to develop a listening attitude. Let us listen to God, who continues to speak to people's hearts. Let us listen to our confreres in community, who are our companions on the journey, and us, other associates. and to the most abandoned, particularly the poor, to whom we're sent. Let us live in an attitude of continuous dialogue with the cultures and religions in which our communities are inserted. And then the other thing that really struck me in the message was, during the chapter, the call of Pope Francis resounded strongly to go forth from your own comfort zone in order to reach all the peripheries in need of the light of the gospel, and to evaluate our structures because such structures can hamper efforts at evangelization. In this context, our missionary vocation in the church takes on new and timely significance. So then, the capitulars talked about being missionaries of mercy and joy. I think back to Kat's song. Right? About being, we've already seen this, one missionary body in a shared mission, and this is all direct quotes from the message, and the call to embrace the present with hope and go to the periphery so that the freshness of the reign of God may reach everyone, particularly the most vulnerable and abandoned. And then this, we encourage our older confreres who have so generously given their lives to proclaiming the gospel to support through their solidarity efforts and prayers the new initiatives that the Holy Spirit inspires in the coming years, so that all are missionaries.
This is probably the most important point.
Yeah.
If we look at the theme that was proposed to the congregation, the most important words are to be witnesses of the Redeemer to the wounded world. But the driving force is in the word solidarity. That we realize that we are one body as a congregation. And it was very good to realize that quite often we are one body only in theory. Only in theory. There is huge disproportion in many levels and areas in the congregation. And this was one of my personal pains, that, some provinces live a very good life, some extremely bad life. And if this happened in our neighborhood, we would share. But since we are not connected, we don't know, or we just listen that something happened in Africa, but okay, they will manage. We have to be more sensible, and solidarity explains that. You cannot sleep comfortable in your bed when you know that there is another Redemptorist there, maybe struggling, and they would like to embrace the call. They would like to go to the people. They would like to give help to the people. But sometimes resources, personal, material, financial resources. And we became a little bit close in our, I don't like the word, but this is how we say it, provincialism. And I live here, this is my province, which is understandable. But you have to break that wall. No? And the word solidarity is the driving force. You have to be solidar with others. Otherwise, if you want to be a witness, okay, to the wounded world, but if you are not united, you don't feel it as your identity, this theme will be very difficult to put into practice. No? But this was my personal very, very strong experience, that I realize how different level, how many disproportions are in the congregation. And of course we have to be reasonable and prudent, but also sensible, that sometimes we are a little bit greedy. I speak about my province. 360 Redemptorists, living for 30, 40 in one house. There is no culture of sharing. Of course, there is 150 Polish Redemptorists living outside, the biggest number of all provinces. But still, we could give more, and we can give more, and we should give more. No, but the head is full of no, because we have to have our security. We don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know, so it's better to this kind of behavior, which is not evangelical. No, And I think this is the strong call from the chapter, which is in the theme of the chapter. To be united with the others. Sorry, maybe I speak too much.
I mean, you can jump in, folks, anytime. So we talked about the decisions. There were 52 decisions, and they're presented in 6 sessions that will look really, really familiar to you, because it's the same as the constitutions and statutes. They're organized the same way. And then I thought one that would affect you most, anybody in this room, is number 11. And it's this, that an office for shared mission with the laity would be established. So it goes, a permanent office for shared mission with the laity will be created at the level of the general government, and a commission for shared mission in each conference. This office, assisted by the conference commissions, will prepare a directory which will describe the profile of a lay redemptorist. I'm interested in the language there, right? Mm-hmm. In all its diverse expressions. It will delineate clearly the duties, rights, responsibilities, and the levels of incorporation. So that's what you've been talking about all the time. So I think there's a tremendous hope here. The office, with the help of the conference commissions and the General Secretary for Formation, will also prepare a ratio, which is like a guiding principles, for the preparation and formation of both lay partners and professed redemptorists for shared mission. So like Peter says, there's a lot promised there, hey? And the way it's beginning is that that office at first will be part of a General Secretariat for Evangelization, because there's no way that's an apostolic priority. But it's a priority, and that's really important. This is not the proclamation of the good news to the most abandoned, but this is how we need to move forward together to get there together. So it's tremendously hopeful. And so that commission will meet in Rome in 2 weeks' time. After pizza with,
No, with me.
after I have pizza with the secretary or the office of shared or redemptive spirituality. And then I think how mission relates to the other concerns of the chapter is important to look at, because this was it. It wasn't about partnership and mission. It really was about mission. So the whole idea of community and consecrated life as a witness, about permanent formation for mission, leadership for mission, and structures, solidarity, and administration that support the mission. And then 2 big concerns that can't be separated. One is an apostolic plan for the congregation that's already being articulated and realized in each conference. And each conference is going to be asked to create or come up with an apostolic plan. And then secondly, revitalization of apostolic life and missionary dynamism in each unit. You can't separate those 2. And then you talked about redemptorist vocabulary, so I thought this would be kind of cool. So the picture I borrowed from the Superior General. It's the picture of Christ the Redeemer at St. Alphonsus Church in Rome, which is attached to the General House. But look at the wounds. Even sitting on his throne in heaven, the Redeemer is still wounded. Thank goodness is right. But it's so obvious, hey, that the body of Christ is still wounded. And so some of the language that shows up in that theme, witnesses of the Redeemer in solidarity for mission to a wounded world, words like witness, Redeemer, solidarity, we've all talked about it for the last few days. Mission, the world, and the word wounded.
So if I understand correctly, general government in Rome, there's going to be an office. Am I correct? That is going to deal with specifically this whole movement of lay involvement. And that office has been established with the director?
Will be.
Will be.
So the way
will that office be a redemptorist and a lay person involved, or will it be just, do we know?
That hasn't been determined yet. The way we're moving into it, I've been asked to take that role on that general secretariat, and to see how we move into from there. So when I got my letter of appointment, it actually says all this as part of the job description.
And then there's going to be in each conference commission.
Yes.
That's the word you're using.
Yeah.
And that commission has already been decided
Here in North America.
for North America, and you're going to be that person.
Yeah, yeah. There is a commission, and we actually need to talk to the Baltimore province a bit
We call
about.
it a secretariat here.
Yeah, we call it a secretariat. So that's who organized this gathering, right? And so, so each conference is being asked to do the same thing. I think in Europe they have a working group looking at partnership and mission, and I don't know about the other conferences. So
now, new coordinators will enter. You know, we'll have new coordinators from 1st of January. And in some conferences, we know already the names of the new coordinators. We don't know here yet. It has been not decided. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll know who will be the coordinator here of this conference. And probably he will meet with his government at the beginning of January, end of December. And they will have to propose names.
I'm confused. The coordinator you're speaking about is a redemptorist?
Yeah.
It's Jack Kingsbury. Right
At the
now.
moment.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking
Yeah.
about the conference board.
Yeah, because you
I
know,
thought you were talking about.
because
Yeah.
the commission will be at the conference level.
I understand.
So
I
he
didn't know what-
enters with his duty.
but I understand. Yeah, the question is then:
I wasn't
is
asking
this
about
office?
that.
You're asking. I think will this office be a layperson, a redemptorist, or both?
Well, I'm asking about on the conference level.
Exactly.
There's going to be you're calling it a secretariat here, so I don't know what you want to call it. It says commission here.
Yeah.
So is that commission, it's going to be under this coordinator, whoever it is, most likely Jack Kingsbury again. And will that commission or secretariat be a functioning office that's paid with perhaps yourself, Ann? And with the redemptress involved in that office? No.
As it looks right now, there will be an office for the conference. Most likely come January. That's why I've been saying January all along. We're not positive yet who it is. It certainly looks, there's going to be one person in it, and most likely is going to be me. But working out the exact details of that and what that looks like. So an office just means it's a structure more than a place, right? And it looks that way, and that it would be that the person who's in the office, their job description would be to begin to get these associate circles moving in each unit, and then look at how they're resourced and supported and encouraged, and not to address not just the formation of the lay people, but also the redemptorists for partnership. So so the plan is that there would be an office in place soon, and the exact specifics of that we're not there yet. Yeah.
I think it might be helpful because the last conference assembly we decided there were two decisions that were made by our conference regarding PIM.
Yes.
So you want me to
Sure.
read?
Yeah.
I think it's just read as it is written by the conference. Our
Dominic, could you be a little louder?
I'll try. Okay, the first one is the conference decided that we establish in the conference an office for partnership in mission. The office will be attached to a person whose job description, remuneration, and hours will be determined by the Board of Provincials in conjunction with the conference coordinator. The second decision that we develop a formation program or approach for the Redemptorist Associates and LMMHR lay missionaries. and also a proposal for the formation of professed redemptorists for collaboration. So those two decisions were made by our conference.
Just for the sake of, curiosity, if you have it, you can answer it. If you don't have it, it's okay. We can wait until next year, January. In terms of the office, under the office, what categories that you think that the conference wanted to emphasize or develop, besides like formation, mission, finance, or recruitment, or what exactly do you think you're looking for?
I think it's pretty clear. Because the Conference Assembly a year ago voted and in support of addressing two forms of partnership in mission, knowing that there are all those other ones that we're aware of, that the ones that require, according to the Conference Assembly, the most attention and formation are Redemptorist Associates. I think that's the basic. And lay missionaries of the Most Holy Redeemer. But I think it's fair to say that you begin with Redemptorist Associates, and they're animals who hang around in packs around Redemptorist missions, ministries, houses, outreach, efforts, and from them we'll see where it goes. That some may be called to be lay missionaries of the Most Holy Redeemer. What's most important right now is to get the category of associates down, and I think from them it'll become clear if we're really listening, as the General Chapter called us to. Francis.
But then, isn't it from this assembly already apparent that there are people who already have been Redemptorist lay missionaries?
Indeed, there are.
And some people who are ready to become Redemptorist lay missionaries without necessarily being in a circle of Redemptorist associates.
That is very true.
And I would think, forgive me, because, but I would think it would be important for us to move on that and to continue this formation and invitation to those, perhaps not just here, but certainly some of the people here, who are ready for this really next step beyond being a Redemptorist associate, because some of the peoples here have had basically Redemptorist associate experience now for a good number of years.
Certainly.
And they're ready for Redemptorist lay missionary status. I'm not trying to...
No, I understand that, Francis, and here, and I'm not going to say that that's not true, but here's my concern. It's one thing, I think it needs listening and conversation. It's one thing to say that I might be ready to be a lay missionary of the Most Holy Redeemer, but is the unit ready to receive and support me?
Right.
And that's the big piece. So it's a mutual thing. And the last thing I think we would want to do is to jump into something that we don't know what it's about. We know we've had this experience. I'm looking at Craig and at Mike, and they are lay missionaries of the Most Holy Redeemer. There is no doubt about that. But they're, and me too, and Baba Joan, and and they're okay, and there's been struggle with that because there's been an up and a down. Now, not that we can eliminate the ups and downs, but I think what we do need to create is a solid sense that we're in this together. And I think there's a whole thing there about delineating clearly the duties, rights, responsibilities, and levels of incorporation. I think there needs to be that kind of conversation so that you don't get hurt or that you don't bind yourself as redemptorist to something you cannot fulfill, and that not that you can ever keep someone from being hurt, but that I don't get bound to something that I can't fulfill either. And I'm just speaking for myself, but for any lay missionary. So I think we need to live our way into it and create that formation process for both that ensures that more solid sense.
Can I just say one other thing? I'm just trying to get at how a lot of the men of our province would respond. And who am I to say? But many men who are very much engaged in ministry, particularly on the parish level, already have lots of laity engaged in the ministry of the parish.
Right.
And many people already engage in prayer groups, Bible study groups, not to mention religious education, soup kitchens, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know that when we present this, for them, they're hearing one more thing.
Yeah.
Because for them, they already just about can keep up with some parishes, like our parish in St. Mary's in Napa. It has 30 or 40 ministries going on in one parish. It's an enormous parish. So I just say to myself, I feel badly that there's not already a Redemptorist Associate group, let's say, in Annapolis, where we have this enormous, tremendous powerhouse of a parish with 2 sites. But on the other hand, I know that they're going to say, well, we've got lay people, and they are involved in our mission.
Some of those might become Redemptorist Associates.
No, I know that, but I would think they would. I'm just saying, I know that I'm going to hear, because I'm going to be the person trying to push this.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to hear from them one more thing. How is them becoming Redemptorist Associates different from, what they're already doing?
And yeah, and from
And I think we have to be clear on how we sell it.
exactly, and how we say, like, there could be all kinds of wonderful volunteers in the parish. Not all of them are Redemptorist Associates or potential Redemptorist Associates. There are some who are really drawn to this charism. And so I think there's a discernment that's necessary and some questions that need to be asked. And then the best experience I can point to is only my own, right? When I look at St. Teresa's and the Associate Circle at St. Teresa's, that's a hoppin' parish. It's in one of the most deprived areas of the city. It's the parish in our city that has the most social housing projects. It's a lot of activity, a lot of different ministries, outreach through St. Vincent de Paul. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. But there's a Circle of Redemptorist Associates, and it meets on the last Thursday of each month, and Margie coordinates them. It's not that they're the most vibrant group, but they wouldn't miss a meeting. And neither would the Redemptorists in the house. It's that mutual support has come to be, and the faith sharing has really come to be significant for us. We always meet, we always pray, and we have a meal or something else afterwards. So someone always brings the food, but you might want to say a word about it, because it's not one more thing.
Well, it builds up to go out. And I mean, it's more like just a circle of friends, more than it is like another thing. Like, sometimes I'm dropping when I go there, and then I go there, and at the end of that, I'm so glad I came. It's a nice way to get energized again in the spirit. I think what
Being invited in to preach a mission is our associates that do all the hospitality and the background organizing, because that's a Redemptorist thing, as distinct from the parish stuff. Many of the associates are electors, or are involved in St. Vincent de Paul, or are Eucharistic ministers, or are sacristans or choir, but this is different than their parish ministry. This is like the food, right?
I'm involved.
Yeah, but the associates are something different. Like, our associates are about 20 of the 400 who might be, because there's a different thing. There's a sense that not everybody's called to be a Redemptorist associate, and we're constantly on the eye, with the eye out, to invite new ones.
Your job description, I would imagine, is going to be very much in helping create and foster these circles. But it seems to me there has to be also concomitant with that some redemptorists on the conference level, perhaps apart from the coordinator, but I'm not sure, maybe it's the coordinator's job, to help us redemptorists, because we're the ones that have to be reformed, as it were, to embrace and run with this whole new adventure. Because the most resistance you're going to get, I suspect, is not from getting people to form this circle of associates. As you say, there's always going to be some people who are attracted to the charism and would love to learn more, become more nurtured and nourished by the whole charism. But it's us. We're going to be the biggest challenge, I think. And that job, whose job is that to get us on board? And just to say it's going to be the provincial's job or the council, I'm not sure that's going to work.
And I have two answers for that. I mean, they're not the best answers. I mean, I think they are good answers. But the first is it's going to be whoever fills that office. It's going to be that person. But remember that we have a conference secretariat. That's the word we're using, commission. And on that, it's full of redemptorists, a redemptorist from each unit. And I think it's meant to be a collaborative effort all the way. And so if it was me in that office, I'd be looking to you, Francis, for a lot of support and that determining the way forward. Like it'll be Dominic who's on that secretariat, and Glenn is on the secretariat, and David's on the secretariat, and Mario's on the secretariat, and Tom Travers, Mike Smolenski, and that together we'll find a way. And look at the support we've got here. Like it's. I don't doubt that there's going to be difficult parts of this, but I also think that the Holy Spirit's. There's an Irish redemptorist. You know who Alec Reid was?
Yeah.
You know Alec. His line was, "The Holy Spirit's out in Gaul. Let him have a run around the field."